Hello, and welcome back to the Podcasting Problem Solver. I am Leah Bryant, your go-to podcast growth strategist, here to coach you to podcast strategically with more clarity and better results. All right, you know that feeling when you hit publish on an episode and then just sit there like, okay, now what? Well, you wouldn't be the first podcaster to ask that question, nor will you be the last. A lot of the podcasters I work with are missing the same step in their workflow, and it's one that actually moves the needle. Recording more episodes won't fix it. Upgrading your mic won't either. Even getting faster at editing won't solve this. It's what happens after you publish. Yep, and today we're talking about the step most podcasters skip and how skipping it is quietly killing your growth every single week. So here's the thing that most of us don't want to admit, that our workflow ends when we hit publish. We record, we edit, we upload, we post one graphic on Instagram, and then we wait. We're basically hoping the download fairy shows up while we're sleeping. But that if I publish it, they will come mentality, that is what's keeping you invisible, friend. Because your podcast isn't actually done when the episode goes live. No, it's not. Your episode is only discoverable when you do the thing most people skip entirely. And that thing is intentional post-publish amplification. I know, the least sexy phrase ever, and if I'm honest, a mouthful. But here's what it really means. Show notes, episode descriptions, SEO, and our friend repurposing. You know, the quote-unquote boring stuff? Well, that boring stuff is the stuff that actually works. If your episode isn't optimized, searchable, and shared beyond your podcast feed, you're just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. And you know what? Hope is not a strategy. Please know this. So, what does this step actually look like? Well, I'm so glad that you asked. What it looks like is it's show notes that do a job. I'm talking about more than here's what we talked about, paragraph you throw together in 5 minutes. You need notes that use keywords your people are already searching for. Notes that link back to your offers, your email list. Notes that make someone say, oh, I need to listen to this. I don't want you to look at SEO as the enemy either. It's actually your unpaid intern working 24/7. And how amazing is that? Now, don't forget about repurposing, where we take one episode and use it multiple places. And before you groan and say, but Leah, that sounds like so much work, let me reframe this for you. Repurposing protects the effort that you've already put in. So think of it as insurance for your content. You take that one episode and turn it into a carousel, a Threads post, a reel, a blog post, an email, a handful of captions and graphics, and then suddenly your episode isn't whispering into the crowd. It's everywhere, and it's being loud about it. Next up is what I call the 3-day strategy window. And here's something that most podcasters don't know. The first 72 hours after you publish are critical. The more traffic you can drive to your episode in those first 3 days, the more your podcast shows up in front of new people. Yep, that's right. The more people who listen and interact with your podcast in the players, the more likely you are to show up in search results and recommendations. So if you publish and then it's crickets for 3 days, you're missing the window. However, if you're strategic about driving people to that episode right away, let's say through an email or social media, wherever your people are, you're telling the algorithm, oh, hey, this is worth showing to more people. And that's the window. And most people don't even know it exists. And next up is distribution that you can actually track. Yes, please and thank you. So whether that's your email list, your Pinterest, your YouTube, wherever, the key is consistency. Here's what I want you to remember. Your workflow ends when the episode has been amplified and not when you upload the file. I have a great example to share, and I will tell you about Megan. So she came to me frustrated. She was recording every week, editing on the weekends. Please don't do that to yourself. Publishing like clockwork, right? But her downloads, to be honest, they were flat and she was stuck. But when I dug into her workflow, I found the problem because, I am the podcasting problem solver. Her problem with her workflow was that it basically ended at exporting the MP3. No show notes, no episode description, no keywords, no repurposing, no amplification. So she was doing 80% of the work, but then leaving the 20% that actually creates growth just sitting there. So I took her workflow and rebuilt it from the ground up using the execution phase of my seamless podcast framework. Added in some strategic show notes, created a simple 30-minute repurposing plan that she could stick to, added in a weekly email that highlighted the episode in a way that felt fun, like she was actually talking to a friend. And then I built in her 3-day strategy window. Like she had a blog, a newsletter, as I mentioned, a couple of reels, and some graphics with takeaways and quotes so that every episode got that initial push. And you know what happened in 30 days? Her downloads increased by 45%. And not only that, but her downloads that did increase were aligned listeners because she was using those keywords and doing all the things to call in those people. She didn't record more episodes. Her workflow just finally carried that work forward for her. And that's exactly what this step does. Your podcast grows because of what you do after you hit publish. If you take one thing away today, I want it to be this. A strategic workflow creates consistent visibility, okay? This is why execution, the E in the seamless podcast framework, matters so much because strategy is going to tell you what to do, but the execution is what makes it so that you can't actually repeat it. When your workflow includes those SEO-driven show notes, episode descriptions, you're repurposing your content, that critical 3-day push, and consistent distribution, your podcast then becomes a growth system instead of just another weekly to-do on your list. And look, I know what it's like to stare at your content calendar thinking, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do next. And that stuck feeling, that's a workflow problem, and you can fix it, friend. Here's what I see happen when people don't fix it. They spend 6 more months publishing episodes that disappear. They get frustrated. They start wondering if their podcast is even working. They want to throw in the towel. And the whole time, they're just missing this one simple step. So if you're thinking, okay, Leah, but I need help building this out. Well, I get it. And that's why I have my growth strategy session. That's normally $297, but if you send me a DM or email the words seamless workflow, you can grab it for $197. It's 60 minutes broken down into 4 15-minute voice coaching over 30 days. You get to ask questions in real time as you're building out your workflow or really anything that you're having trouble with, and I will help you troubleshoot it. It's the most hands-on way to do this without guessing your way through. And one of my clients told me this after our first session. She said, I finally know what to do on Tuesday mornings. And that's the kind of clarity that we're going for here, okay? And if you want something deeper, if you're ready to build a full visibility system around your podcast, that's exactly what we do inside the Seamless Sprint. 90 days to make your podcast work harder for you than you work for it. All right, so go open up that workflow doc and make sure that it doesn't stop at publish. Make sure that you are continuing to repurpose that episode. You deserve a podcast that's discoverable, sustainable, and strategic. Yes, you do. I believe in you, and I know that you do. And when you apply execution the seamless way, it will be. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter where I share all kinds of strategy, tips, and behind-the-scenes things for you. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, keep your podcast purposeful, keep that workflow strategic, and your growth seamless. And I'll see you next time.